What's up, nerds? I'm Kendrick, your not-so-friendly neighborhood otaku, and welcome to my channel where I talk all things anime, manga, manhwa, and webcomics. If that's the type of thing you're into, then subscribe because I'll put 2 to 3 shorts of anime commentary out every Monday to Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 1 full-length video out every week, also at 1 p.m. Today, we're going to be continuing the series where I go back and reread the Jujutsu Kaisen manga over from the beginning and bring you all along with me. As always, this series is great for anyone who's a first-time JJK fan, anime only, or who wants to get caught up. So without further ado, let's dive into Volume 14. In Chapter 116, Sukuna and Jogo stand atop the flaming remains of Maximum Meteor. Sukuna creates an arrow of flames between his palms while Jogo swirls his flames into a small fireball. Sukuna takes aim, stretching the arrow between his hands like a bow while Jogo stands across from him. Then we see Jogo in a fantasy alongside his deceased allies Hanami and Dagon. He apologizes to them and says that death is something humans fear and detest, yet they linger beyond it. It's a mirror for humanity, and Mahito is the manifestation of that reflection. He will continue to grow stronger, and that's why Jogo propped him up as their leader. Jogo believes when they're all reborn, they'll become new entities. Despite this, he hopes all of them will be able to reunite someday. Sticking to his ideology to the end, Jogo says he believes cursed spirits are the true humans. Then Sukuna abruptly enters the fantasy and asks Jogo if he wants to become human. Sukuna knows Jogo means he wants curses to take the place of humans, but he believes this is foolish. Sukuna believes humans and curses comparing themselves to those around them leads to weakness and stunts their growth. Sukuna says Jogo should have burned everything to a cinder without a second thought to reach the heights of Gojo, but he lacked the drive to achieve his desires. Despite Jogo's lack of hunger for his goals, the battle still entertains Sukuna, saying Jogo's not bad compared to those he's fought over the last 1,000 years. He commends Jogo, telling him to stand proud because he's strong. Acknowledged by the King of Curses, Jogo sheds a tear and asks what's going on. Back in reality, Sukuna answers Jogo's smoldering corpse, claiming he doesn't know either. Immediately after, the curse user Uraume comes to escort Sukuna, calling him master. When he turns around, Sukuna is surprised to see Uraume, recognizing them from the past. Elsewhere, at 11:07 p.m., Megumi is severely injured and Haruta faces a new threat. Distressed, Haruta demands Megumi wake up from his unconscious and bloody state. In Chapter 117, an exhausted and injured Megumi tells Haruta that the 10 Shadows technique begins when the sorcerer who inherited the technique receives 2 divine dogs. In order to use other Shikigami, they must be summoned and defeated by the sorcerer with the help of the divine dogs. This allows the user to gain more Shikigami, repeating the method until they amass up to 10 Shikigami. As Megumi crosses the road away from the curse user, Haruta notices that Megumi's not letting him get close despite being on his last legs. And with how much he's bleeding, Haruta feels he won't even need to finish Megumi off. Moments later, Megumi collapses, hitting the ground with a hard thud, proving his point. Megumi struggles to get up, but he continues to divulge how the 10 Shadows technique works. Other people can help with the exorcism ritual, but this will nullify the technique once the respective Shikigami is defeated. This makes it a pointless exorcism, but even a pointless exorcism is useful to Megumi. At some point in the past, Gojo explained to Megumi why the Zenin clan and Gojo clan are on such bad terms. Hundreds of years ago, the heads of each household killed each other in a battle before the aristocracy. The Gojo family head was a limitless user with the 6 eyes, and the Zenin family head possessed the 10 Shadows technique. Gojo implied that Megumi could rise to this level one day, but in the present, Megumi still doesn't believe he could become stronger than his mentor. So Megumi decides to use his last resort and believes the head of the household that defeated the 6 eyes used the 10 Shadow styles this way as well. At this time, Jogo's Maximum Meteor hits the ground in the distance, shaking it and getting Haruta's attention. He asks himself who the show-off could be, and Megumi redirects his attention back to the explanation. Megumi finishes divulging his technique by revealing that a 10 Shadows technique user cannot use a Shikigami unless it's been exorcised. However, they can be summoned at any time for an exorcism ritual. Haruta turns around and notices Megumi's sudden influx of curse energy. Then Megumi reveals that not a single 10 Shadows technique user has been able to exorcise the Shikigami he's about to bring forth. Haruta realizes his adversary's plan too late and yells stop. Megumi summons the 8-handled sword divergent, still a divine general Maharaga, dragging his opponent into an unbeatable exorcism ritual. Haruta realizes he must fight Maharaga with Megumi to survive, but Megumi is in no shape to fight. Megumi silently apologizes to Yuuji and tells Haruta good luck since he'll be passing on first. With that, Maharaga hits Megumi aside, crashing his body into a nearby building and incapacitating him. Haruta is shocked by Megumi's willingness to sacrifice himself and curses him for it, demanding the Jujutsu sorcerer get back up and end this cruel game. After defeating Jogo and encountering Uraume, Sukuna notices something is wrong. He feels it's urgent and leaves Uraume behind after telling them not to neglect their preparations. Sukuna disappears and Uraume says they'll be awaiting his return. Just before Maharaga crushes Haruta, Sukuna saves him with his immense speed. He reads the situation instantly and notices that Megami is in a suspended state of death. Sukuna was right to save Haruta because he was dragged into the exorcism ritual. So if Haruta dies, Megami would as well. To prevent this, Sukuna uses a reverse curse technique to heal Megami, telling him there's something he still needs to do. Sukuna thinks that in order to save Megami, he needs to defeat the Shikigami. Despite being an outsider of the ritual, exorcising Maharaga would void the ritual completely. Then Sukuna takes a fighting stance and says he'd like to begin the battle with just a little taste. In chapter 118, Maharaga attacks, swinging down the blade attached to its fist. Sukuna blocks the blade with his forearm, creating a shockwave that knocks Haruta off balance. Sukuna notices the blade is emitting a strange energy and flips out of the way before it breaks through his defense. While upside down in mid-air, Sukuna delivers a flurry of left-handed punches. He then lands a follow-up by unleashing his curse technique, Dismantle, which slices the Shikigami's body all over. While Maharaga recovers from the heavy blows, Sukuna recognizes the specialized blade as a cursed tool for cursed spirit, the Sword of Extermination. The blade is enveloped in a positive energy similar to what's produced by reverse curse technique. If Sukuna were a normal cursed spirit, he would have been sliced clean through by Maharaga. Then the 8-handled wheel on Maharaga's head turns, suddenly healing all wounds. Sukuna quickly attacks again, but this time his slashing attack is deflected by Maharaga, which surprises him. Maharaga swings his blade again and Sukuna blocks it with his arms. But this time his arms immediately broken and he's sent crashing through several buildings from this impact. Amused, Sukuna admits his opponent isn't bad, and in an instant, Maharaga clears the area it just hit Sukuna across to follow up with another attack. Maharaga attempts to stab Sukuna in the face, but he jumps above the blade, kicking his opponent at the same time. Sukuna then mounts his giant opponent's arm and places his palm on the Shikigami's face, stating that it's his turn now. Then Sukuna activates his slashing technique. The impact sends the Shikigami falling out of the structure, only for Sukuna to follow up and kick it straight to the ground. Sukuna lands beside his opponent and assumes it will heal itself again based on his observations. The 8-handled wheel turns and all of Maharaga's injuries disappear, just as Sukuna expected. Maharaga's first attack was reinforced with positive energy. When that didn't work, it adapted and reinforced its second attack with cursed energy. It was also able to see Sukuna's cursed technique and deflect it. Both of these things happen after the 8-handled wheel turned the first time. Furu's incantation of the 10 sacred treasures and the 8-handled wheel represent a complete cycle and harmony. With this, Sukuna deduces Maharaga's technique allows it to adapt to any and all phenomena. Sukuna admits that if Megami unleashed this creature when they first fought, it may have been able to beat him. He thanks Megami for showing him the way and activates Domain Expansion Malevolent Shrine. In chapter 119, we learn that Sukuna's technique is divided into two types of slashing attacks. The default slash dismantle and the other cleave, which can be adjusted based on the target's toughness and cursed energy to cut them down in one fell swoop. Malevolent Shrine, unlike other domain expansions, doesn't create a separate space using its barrier. Manifesting one's innate domain without closing its barrier is akin to painting a masterpiece on air without a canvas, making it a truly divine technique. By allowing an escape route using a binding vow, Sukuna increases the guaranteed hit area to a nearly 200-meter radius. But Sukuna took Megami into account and narrowed down the effective range to 140 meters to avoid hitting him. Within that 140 meters though, Sukuna mercilessly slashes that area of Shibuya apart, meaning that civilians who were hiding out nearby after being rescued by Inumaki are violently torn to pieces. Anything with cursed energy is hit with cleave, while dismantle is used on inanimate objects. While Malevolent Shrine is active, Sukuna's slashing attacks relentlessly cut down anything within its guaranteed hit's effective range. Almost 200 meters of Shibuya is decimated in an instant by Sukuna's attack. Sukuna believes the only way to defeat Maharaga is to kill it with a new attack before it recovers. However, Maharaga has not only adapted to dismantle, but slashing attacks in general. This means Maharaga can recover soon and Sukuna needs to act quickly. He activates his mysterious flame technique again and shoots a fire arrow at the Shikigami before it heals. The impact creates a giant pillar of explosive flames that completely decimate Maharaga. Haruta watches in amazement as Sukuna walks back to Megami with Maharaga's wheel in hand. He throws the 8-handled wheel past Haruta and it disintegrates soon after, solidifying Sukuna's victory. Annoyed, Sukuna asks Haruta what he's looking at and tells him to be gone. Feeling extremely lucky, Haruta runs off, excited to escape another dangerous situation alive. Here we learn that Haruta's curse technique stores little everyday miracles that are erased from his memory. These miracles are released to save Haruta when he's in danger, and the markings under his eyes show how many miracles are stored. But even he's not aware of how it works. Believing he's escaped the day with his life, Haruta runs off. However, his body suddenly slides apart, revealing he's been cut by the effects of Sukuna's attack as well. Haruta's luck had run out fighting against Nanami, and with his body sliced in half, Haruta dies. As Sukuna walks off without remorse, he can feel himself losing control, and he decides to take Megami to where Shoko and Yaga are. Sukuna disappears as quickly as he appears, and Yaga only saw him for a second, questioning if it was Sukuna or Yuuji. Sukuna releases control over Yuji's body, allowing him to see the chaos that was unleashed in his stead. In chapter 120, Sukuna returns to the area in front of Shibuya 109 after dropping Megami off. With his grip over Yuji's body loosening, Sukuna switches control back over and tells him to take a good look. When Sukuna's marks disappear and Yuji regains consciousness, he's faced with the wasteland that used to be Dogenzaka. There's a skyline in the distance, but a large portion of Shibuya has been destroyed. Haruta's corpse is in plain view as the first thing for Yuji to see. Initially dumbfounded, Yuji collapses as memories from Sukuna's rampage invade his mind. He vomits and cries as he realizes Sukuna murdered several people and greatly endangered his friends. The distressed student recalls asking why he had to be executed upon initially deciding to enroll in Jujutsu High. But now, as tears roll from his eyes and he huffs for air, Yuji tells himself to just die already. He begins frantically scratching the ground and continuing to tell himself to die as his grandfather's words play in his head. Suddenly, Yuji stops and sits up for a moment, raising his head and declaring that he needs to move. He needs to fight. Yuji believes at this rate he'll be nothing but a murderer, placing him in a chilling state of focus. Meanwhile, despite being severely injured by Dagon's death swarms and Jogo's flame, Nanami's still alive and walking around. The left half of his body is completely scorched, including that entire side of his face. He walks past a photo booth while traversing slowly down the hallway, and after he passes by, the booth's curtains open, revealing Mahito. He watches Nanami move through the station until the sorcerer encounters a large group of transfigured humans. Then Nanami begins to daydream about Malaysia, wishing he could have built a house on a secluded beach and read the countless books he never got around to finishing. Rather than being able to relax and live a carefree life, Nanami snaps out of these thoughts and worries about the students. He admits he's just tired, asking hasn't he done enough, but still he continues to fight. He ferociously slashes through the transfigured humans with his cleaver until a familiar hand touches his chest. Nanami looks up to see Mahito and claims he didn't know the cursed spirit was around. Mahito reveals he's been there the whole time and asks if the sorcerer would like to chat since they go way back. Nanami wonders why he came back to being a Jujutsu sorcerer for the vague reason of finding the work worthwhile, asking Haibara what he was trying to do. An illusion, or perhaps Haibara's spirit, appears and points Nanami to his right. When Nanami looks over, he sees Yuji entering the station down the hall. Nanami tells Haibara that he doesn't want to end up becoming a curse for Yuji. So in his last moments, Nanami smiles and tells Yuji he's got it from here. Then Mahito promptly kills Nanami by obliterating the top half of his body. Enraged, Yuji screams and demands to know what Mahito is, rushing at him to fight. With a smile on his face, Mahito says he could hear just fine without the yelling and prepares for the rematch. In chapter 121, Yuji rushes Mahito ready to take revenge for his fallen mentor. Mahito calmly flicks a small transfigured human at Yuji and transforms it into one that can make spikes come out of its head. Yuji avoids the spike attack, but Mahito uses the transfigured human to get behind Yuji and prepare his soul multiplicity technique, which allows Mahito to combine 2 or more souls. He then unleashes Body Repel, a reaction due to the soul's rejection of the fusion. By leveraging the effect for his own advantage and increasing the soul's energy, Mahito can generate an overwhelming output directed at Yuji. Mahito unleashes a long transfigured human that attempts to bite Yuji with its giant mouth. Yuji successfully grabs the teeth to stop the attack, but Mahito appears from inside the mouth and lands a hard right punch that smashes Yuji's face. Then Mahito transfigures his hand to include a blunt, square-shaped weapon above his knuckles, claiming he would have split Yuji's skull had he put a little more back into it. Yuji asks how Mahito can toy so aimlessly with people's lives, and the cursed spirit just laughs at him. Mahito doesn't look for a reason, and he isn't remorseful in the slightest. The best answer Mahito can give him is a demonstration. He creates Junpei's face with one hand and stabs it with the other, claiming Yuji and him are the same, and Mahito believes that until Yuji accepts that fact, he'll never win. Yuji tells Mahito he talks too much and he'll ensure those are his dying words. Wiping the blood from his face, Yuji stops the bleeding and reveals a large scar. Nanami's voice reminds Yuji that he must remain calm. He prepares to fight, allowing cursed energy to flow calmly from his hands, as he's determined to prove that he's a Jujutsu sorcerer. Mahito matches Yuji by concentrating cursed energy in his fists while contemplating his strategy. Fatal transfiguration doesn't work on Yuji, so Mahito decides to maintain his body's toughness and stick to only manipulating his limbs. Instead, Mahito won't change his soul's shape at all while maintaining maximum strength with pure cursed energy reinforcement. He plans to stab through Yuji's heart in one attack, but when his fist pierces through the air, Yuji suddenly disappears from sight. Yuji is a master at hand-to-hand combat, particularly Taito martial arts. Knee release is an ancient fighting technique that eliminates a starting movement. Yuji not only releases his knees, but his hips and shoulders as well, to guide him to his opponent's feet. Using the momentum from getting to this lower position, Yuji strikes Mahito in the face with a manji kick. Yuji follows up by front kicking Mahito in the stomach, but the curse quickly transforms transforms his arm into a spike vine, forcing Yuuji back. Impressed, Mahito admits Yuuji's technique wasn't bad and announces it's time to move on to round 2. In chapter 122, Mahito and Yuuji continue fighting in Shibuya Station. Mahito attempts to slash Yuuji, but he jumps over the attack. Then Mahito runs through the station and uses delayed transfiguration to catch Yuuji off guard. Yuuji avoids it again, and Mahito follows up with a punching attack from a large, enhanced extra arm wrapped around his torso. Yuuji grabs the arm, and Mahito immediately recognizes the danger that presents. Yuuji counterattacks, but Mahito dismantles his own arm, giving it legs so they can both escape. Mahito runs through the ticket gate and merges back with the severed arm once they're at a safe distance. Yuuji takes note that Mahito has unlocked a few new tricks since they last fought. Mahito knows attacking directly is a big risk for him, so he decides to stick with using transfigured humans. Then Mahito runs to a different area of the station, disappearing from Yuuji's sight. The student gets spotted by 2 civilians who warn him it's too dangerous to be lurking around. Yuuji believes Mahito ran upstairs and tries to tell the 2 non-sorcerers to hide. Suddenly, Mahito's arm appears from inside one of their mouths and punches Yuuji. Mahito climbs out of the man as if he were shedding his skin and transforms the other civilian into a sword, telling Yuuji to work on his imagination. Mahito knows that using transfigured humans is good at breaking down Yuuji's mental resolve. Nearly 2 hours ago, at Shibuya Station B4F, Dagon consumed numerous civilians. This was around the time Mahito, Chozo, and Jogo began their hunt for Yuuji. In order to find Yuuji first, Mahito split himself into 2, blocking his competition's way with a large transfigured human. Presently, Mahito's other self encounters Nobara in an alleyway, and she recognizes him from Yuuji's past reports. Mahito takes this as a compliment that he's famous, but Nobara claims he's only known for being a coward and fleeing. Amused, Mahito decides to kill her, and Nobara fights because she doesn't have anything to show for the incident so far. She tries to remember what it was like to unleash Black Flash, attempting to tap into the core of cursed energy. In a short exchange, Nobara manages to get the better of Mahito, using clever explosions of her pins and the environment around them. He admits she isn't bad, but doesn't believe her attacks can actually harm him. Mahito understands that Nobara is an ally of Yuuji, and plans to bring her corpse to him to destroy his soul. In chapter 123, at 1:14 p.m., after Nanami left Nobara and Akari behind, Nobara refused to leave with the paramedics team. They didn't tell Nobara that Shoko was in Shibuya, so she didn't do something reckless. However, she ignored Nanami's orders to stay out of the incident and went off alone, because she can't just run away while everyone else keeps fighting. Currently, inside the station, Mahito skewers 3 innocent civilians and uses them to attack Yuuji as he comes up the stairs. Yuuji checks on the condition of one of the injured people, only for them to transfigure and explode. The blood gets in Yuuji's eyes, leaving him vulnerable to an attack from behind. Mahito transforms his arm into a spiked club and prepares to finish Yuuji off. Meanwhile, in the alley nearby, Mahito continues to clash with Nobara. She avoids his hands, but Mahito's double can't manipulate transfigured humans or other souls, so the double attacks by transforming himself since this isn't Yuuji and he won't incur any risk. They exchange blows and Nobara's shoulder is injured. Mahito points out that her methods are ineffective, but Nobara says she has to try anyway. Mahito casually avoids Nobara's projectile nails as she climbs up the side of the alley to a higher platform. She drops several nails at Mahito's feet and detonates them with hairpin before coming down, confusing Mahito with her movement. While he's focused on Nobara, she activates hairpin again, and her curse energy extends from the nails into Mahito's lower body, immobilizing him. Mahito realizes the first explosion was simply to point the nails upright, putting them in the perfect position. Nobara mounts Mahito while he's injured, but he doesn't see any potential danger in this. However, unbeknownst to the special grade, Nobara has determined a way to attack his soul. She hammers a nail directly into his head and activates resonance. By using Mahito's body as the effigy, Nobara can use her curse technique to attack his soul. As a result, resonance also relays from the double to the original soul, and rebounds the damage back, greatly injuring them both. Mahito's sudden injury stops him from finishing off Yuuji. Mahito's double is shocked, and he realizes Yuuji isn't his only natural enemy. The girl standing before him can attack his soul as well. Nobara then reveals that she felt her curse energy activate somewhere else nearby, and that she doesn't feel Mahito's curse energy is as strong as it should be. With this, she deduces that this Mahito is actually a double that can't properly use its innate technique. Amused, Mahito licks the blood dripping from his face and admits that Nobara is correct. In chapter 124, the final chapter in this volume, Nobara has successfully hit Mahito's soul, injuring both him and his double with resonance. While Mahito is injured and off guard, Yuuji pummels him with rapid-fire curse energy-infused punches. Resonance's effect is still lingering, so Mahito can't move well or fight back. While Yuuji bashes Mahito into a pillar with a relentless barrage of punches, he thanks Nobara. Yuuji believes he hasn't been able to save anyone and he's wasted everyone's efforts, but Nobara's help has shown him he's not alone. Inspired by Nobara, Yuuji keeps the pressure on and prepares to exercise Mahito here and now. Meanwhile, in the alley, the nail drops from Mahito's double's forehead as he confirms her theory about him. Nobara believes the real duel will begin now, but the double decides to run away instead and heads directly into a subway entrance. hands. Nobara can ignore him and go to B5F, but she has a bad feeling about letting him run loose, and decides to exercise him on the way there. Before Yuuji can finish off Mahito's main body, he splits into several small spherical versions of himself that run all across the room. One of them flares up its curse energy to get Yuji's attention, making him think it's Mahito's main body and smash it. However, this was a feint, and the other doubles reform Mahito's body as he runs away. Both Mahitos enter the same corridor, with both students chasing them from opposite sides. Yuuji initially believes Mahito is trying to heal himself until he sees Nobara. He immediately yells for her to run away, realizing she's in danger. Nobara's fight with the double made her lower her guard against Mahito's hands, and he scores a direct hit on Nobara's face. Yuuji easily kills the double with a single hit and runs over to check on Nobara. Mahito waits to see if one touch will be enough to kill her, since it wasn't enough to kill Nanami in their first encounter. Nobara touches her face and recalls her life in 2009, when she was an empathetic 6-year-old playing Smash Bros. Back then, she believed everyone in her hometown was weird, and that she was the only sane person there. And that is everything in Volume 14. As always, for those of you who stayed till the end, thank you so much for watching. I personally love doing these recaps because it really helps me solidify what is happening in this plot. That is all for today though, and I will see you next time.